wonder how much longer we've got the essential free ride on the internet. Do I sense it's about to come to a crashing halt?
Well, I don't think so, because we haven't really had all of the long wave economic depression markers.
You got to be careful not to choke the baby in the cradle.
Yeah, exactly. On the other hand, some of the things, the last time we made a V12 engine in the U.S. was back in the Depression, and I noticed that I think it's 2004 or 2005, Cadillac's coming out with its V12.
Well, you guys are in the new big business coming for the internet. I mean, you should think that way. Think big, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, predicting the future, that's no small matter. Definitely no small matter. So, we're going to hold on. That's a big business to be in, predicting the future. Going on out into the internet. Reading the emotion of the masses. That's what they're doing. And they're getting awfully specific about some predictions. We're going to talk about that more when we get back.
Talk with Art Bell. Call the Wildcard line at area code 775-727-1295. The first-time caller line is area code 775-727-1222. To talk with Art Bell from east of the Rockies, call toll-free at 800-825-5033. From west of the Rockies, call 800-618-8255. International callers may reach Art by calling your in-country Sprint access number, pressing option 5. And dialing toll-free 800-893-0903. From coast to coast and worldwide on the Internet, this is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
Very interesting, isn't it, that the information gleaned from writing these programs, these bots, and sending them out into the net, looking for response from the collective, really, that's what it is. That's certainly what we're talking about, collective consciousness. It's predictive, and I guess it's timeless. In other words, looking forward into the future, or perhaps to calibrate what you're doing, like Princeton, you can look into the past as well. We'll ask about that. Okay, listen, everything I'm hearing from these gentlemen makes absolute sense to me. And if you followed along with the Princeton story, the experiments that we've done on the air over the years, and now what George and Clif have stumbled into, and I think it's fair to say they did stumble into it based on what I've heard. I mean, they had good intentions, surely, in what they were doing. Nothing wrong with making a buck, trying to figure out what stocks or the stock market is going to do. Nothing wrong with that in the world. People have been writing programs and trying to figure out ways to take a look-see at what's going to happen with stocks for a long time. So nothing wrong with trying to get rich, and that's, what probably the motivation was, and that's cool. But then you stumble into something else, something totally unexpected, like this, and it probably isn't going to make you much money, is it?
To say the least.
Yeah. In fact, it's probably going to cost you. In fact, yeah, it's going to cost you money to even get this thing off its wobbly legs and get going, isn't it? It already costs you money, I bet.
It already has.
Yeah,
We've been diverted because we kind of like got our focus shifted once we discovered what it was capable of and no longer really pursued the individual stock kind of thing. And so have kind of, I don't want to say abandoned that, but
right.
took another larger direction.
Understood. All right, I want to tell the audience it's going to be perhaps problematic trying to take calls when we have two guests, so I'm going to be relying on Fast Blast a lot here, which is a way to send us a message on the Internet. Just go to coasttocoastam.com and look for Fast Blast and then fire me off one. Here is one from Richard in Toronto. He says another interesting thing about the Princeton strike on 9/11, a spike rather on 9/11, was that the chart spiked up a couple of hours before the attack hit, as if to suggest humanity might have sent something. Or the couple of hours prior was when the first terrorists began their move, or it was reacting to the terrorists. When I discussed this with others, they didn't know. Was this spike representative of some general collective consciousness knowing that something was about to happen, or could it have been reading the minds of the hijackers who were about to end their own lives? These would have been very strong emotions.
I would presume the former, simply because the way I think about it is the chorus line in the theater analogy. You've got a chorus line, say the Rockettes or something, all these nice women going into a theater, it gets dark, they're going to watch a movie on their break or something, and one woman at the end of a row feels something on her foot, and she instantly thinks it's a mouse, and she jumps up and screams. And in the darkened theater, with the heightened tension of the film and etc., and one woman after another within this line screaming simply because the woman next to her screamed, we get this generated emotion. Now, I can see that the people involved would be there, since they're screaming at their own frequency, so to speak, if they had been psychic and or were tuned, could have perceived themselves screaming in the future simply because they're the best antenna for their own vibration. Does that make sense?
I think so, yes. And here's another one for you. I asked this of the people doing some of the Princeton-type work, and that is there a way of calibrating your response? I mean, surely what you're looking into is not measured in time. In other words, the future, the present, the past, it's all sort of mushed together.
One big goulash.
Right. So is there any way, I wonder, of, I mean, after all, we know what's happened in the past, save those politically resurrected and changed events in history, but basically we know when large, very large events occurred. Is there any way of calibration by looking back?
Unfortunately, to do that, we would have to have had the bots pretty much continuously deployed and have been building model space more or less continuously. Then, yes, we might be able to go back. Incidentally, there's a run, a very short run. I think it's under 2 million samples that Clif did over the past couple of days.
Yes.
Which is up on his website. And one of the things that's unique about this particular run is it focuses on immediacy. So, in other words, back to that Toronto listener's question, what seems to happen is there's this shift in language that happens, let's say 45 to 60 days before a major emotional event. And then a couple of hours before the event, think of it as this quantum potential for an event moves forward in time, it begins to get into a nonlinear curve and begins, the potential rises at an exponential rate, and at some point as it ascends this exponential probability curve, the Princeton eggs go, yep, that's it. And then the event itself is the actual realization of the quantum change. Make sense?
I believe so. And so potentially your method of sending out these bots would be better at longer range predictions than what Princeton has demonstrated so far. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think so, Cliff.
I would say that that's very fair, that in fact at this stage I actually saw the real value in this technology being able to be applied as, say, an overlay to what the FBI or NSA or somebody might be doing on a specific level.
Sure.
And say, don't waste your time looking at that particular area, go and look at this area. It's more likely to find profit for you.
All right. Well, yeah, speaking of that, you're on a national radio program right now. A fairly rare opportunity, perhaps, and certainly an opportunity for you to take any data, let's say, for the coming year that you feel at all confident about and getting it out here and now publicly. There's nothing like a whopper of a prediction made ahead of time on national radio. It has great effect.
I wish we had a whopper to make.
The run that Clif just did, one interpretation of the run that was just posted this afternoon was that, or let's see, this afternoon East Coast time, this morning West Coast time.
Yes.
Was that we will, an interpretation is that we could see an attack by a male and female attacker using 3 explosives to set off some form of respiratory distress weapon in a crowded place, which was approached from a tunnel. And it's very unlikely that's really what's going to happen. But there's something that, if the immediacy reads are correct, might happen over what, Cliff, the next week?
Timing has always been our real issue. I mean, initially we thought the tipping point was going to be closer to July of 2001. I gave it a lesser probability the further we went away from July, but nonetheless, within our boundary of 60 days, it came near the end. So I would have to say my most abysmal failure has been in predicting the timing involved. But George is correct. We've got a reading. At the moment, it has some details. For instance, it says that the attacking pair, the male and the female, will split. The female will pursue a conservative path. The male will question his, mission or whatever you want to say. We also know that of the 3 falling fruit, which is how it came out this time, that 1 will be saved was the actual wording, and that may be able to be interpreted as 3 projectiles or bombs or something, one of which would be stopped from exploding. Might be the reverse, because we don't know which viewpoint it has. In other words, is this seeing this from the viewpoint of the attackers or from the defenders? Okay,
we're circling this up. You're telling me there's going to be a biological attack.
No, not biological. It'll cause respiratory distress. That could be chemical.
I assumed, I'm sorry, it could be chemical. Okay, perhaps a chemical attack with 2 or 3 bombs perpetrated by a man and a woman. Is that
correct? But now also look at this. Let me be very specific, since we're getting in this.
You are getting very specific.
No, I mean much more specific than that, in the sense that the data that I gathered, I did so over the past 4 days. And since we don't have a lot of data, we don't have enough to cause a shift forward in time to apply that to it. So we're looking at a snapshot, not really a little tiny movie. In addition to that, the projection may be talking about how people are perceiving the current events around the British Airway flights. And I'll let George talk about how we perceived the terrorist attack on the causing the blackout.
George?
Well, yeah, we